Alright, welcome to the second of our Blender tutorials. We're going to create a simple spaceship today here. I'm using Unity 2.83, the current long-term support release. I just created a new scene here and I've got a cube in here. I'm going to just do some cleanup for recording. I'm going to click on the camera and delete that, and click on this light and delete that. Sometimes they go away. I'm going to go into cursor mode here and just click and get this cursor off to the side here, so to just really have this cube here that I'm working with. Okay, we're going to use this tutorial. I've actually been using this tutorial for many years, a polygon spaceship. We're going to create this simple spaceship here. And it's interesting, this is originally done in Maya, and the interfaces have changed from Maya to Blender, and again, with different versions of Blenders, I've had to re-record this tutorial a couple times. But again, the general method we use for creating this has stayed basically the same for about 10 years. So again, we're going to start with a cube here. We're going to make it a little longer, so it's a kind of rectangle, and then we're going to extend or extrude these faces in two directions. So I'm going to switch to object mode. Oops, go to my cursor, click on my object, switch to edit mode, and I'm going to select to face mode. I'm going to work mainly with face mode here. And I'm just going to pull that one face out. So again, I've got kind of a longer cube here. That'll be how wide my spaceship is. And then we're going to start pulling out sides of this. So again, I can click on one side and do an extrude and pull this out, and do another extrude and pull this out again. I'm going to show you a way. I want to make these two sides of the ship exactly the same, and often when we do extrudes we can use a shortcut key Alt E. So I'm just going to undo. So I'm going to click on this side and this face, and I'm going to hold down Shift and click on this side. And again, with those two opposite sides selected, I'm then going to do my extrude. But rather than doing this extrude, I'm going to hit Alt E on my thing, and that'll bring up this, and I can do an extrude with individual faces. Let me show you what happens if I just hit this extrude. I just get one extrude, and it just kind of moves these faces along this area. I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hit again Alt E and choose extrude individual faces, and then I can drag and pull these faces out at the same time. So I'm going to create it just about like that. Again, exact size of this isn't that important. You just want to try to create a spaceship here. So again, we pull those out. We've created this here, and I'm going to then make these sides a little smaller so that it chambers down a little bit. So let's switch back to here. So I'm going to click on that face again. Oops, they were selected, and this face. Select on those two faces, and I'm going to go to my scale, and I'm going to try to scale those down a little bit. Oops, what I've actually done, I can see, is I extruded these the wrong direction, so they crisscross here. So I'm going to have to go back and undo this. I'm going to go back to my extrude here, try this again. Alt E, extrude individual faces, and then go out, and then there. So now I'm going to go back to my resize and resize these faces down. That looks better. Okay, so now I've got this. I've extruded my two faces, and I've resized these individual sides down a little bit with this resize button. Okay, so I've got that, and now I'm going to extrude this face down a little bit and pull it out. So again, I'm going to click on this face. I'm going to do this at the same time. Now there's a couple options when doing these things at the same time on both sides. One is you can divide your figure in half and mirror it later on. We'll look at that when we're doing figures, but for now I'm just going to click on one side, hold down Shift, and click on the other side and do both sides at the same time. Let's try this insert faces option and do that here, and try to insert some faces. So I'm just going to insert some faces there, and then I'm going to pull those out also. I wanted those to pull out here. So we're going to extrude these wings kind of out here. So again, now I've got these individual faces here. I'm going to again right click there, hold down shift and click there. So I've just got those two. I'm going to again do Alt E to do my extrude and do individual faces, and oops, I'm going to drag those out like that. So that looks good. Now with those two faces still selected, I'm going to click on my movement here, and I'm going to drag those back a little bit. So I get something like that. So that's basically what we have here. Now I can do some more refinement here. I could actually switch into edge mode here if I wanted, and select that edge and hold down shift and select this edge and move those edges in, or something like that a little bit if I wanted to. But I don't know, it's just whatever you want, just create that. So I'm going to go back to face mode here. Alright, so I've got this basic layout here that I have. Now I'm going to want a fin at the top that I'm going to do here. So I'm going to insert faces here. And again, with that, I'm going to select this face. I could actually extrude that and pull that in, or I could do this insert faces, either one. Let's do an extrude just to see how that does. So I'm going to extrude that, and I'm going to pull that up a little bit. So that's just going up, and then I'd have to resize that. I don't know if I like that, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go back to this insert faces and do that here, and pull that down. I'm going to pull that face up just a little bit. I'm going to want it a little bit thinner, I think. So I think I'm going to go into, should have pulled that in a little bit more. So I'm going to go back and click on this face and move that face in a little bit. Click on this face and move that face in. How does that look? And then, that edge go here. So eventually I want to be able to extrude, so do an extrude and pull this fin up a little bit. And I can then click on this move and slide that back. Okay, so there's my basic things. And again, try to get that somewhat like that. So again, this is what, we've tried to extrude this or move this up and scale it or move it back here. So I've got this basic face here. And again, I can click on this face and move it back and forth here. So that's my basic spaceship so far. I want a little bit of ports here, so I'm going to click on these two parts and send those in so they're kind of recessed. So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to click on this face and this face at the same time. And I'm going to do insert faces and create some faces here. Let's see, bring those in just a little bit. Then I'm going to do extrude and pull those back inside here like that. Okay, that's the general thing. And I'm going to do the same thing for this back one here. So I'm going to go around to the other side and do the same thing back there. So again, I'm going to do an insert faces and pull that in. I'm actually going to this time do a move and shift that in a little bit, so it shifts in a little bit, and then I'm going to do an extrude and push it in even more there. Okay, so I've got my ports, engine ports up there and then back. Okay, now we're going to pull up the front cockpit here. We're going to pull that out in a couple different segments. So I'm going to click on that face. I'm in extrude mode. I'm just going to extrude it out a little bit. Just uniformly like that. I'm going to do another extrude and pull it out some more. And now I'm going to refine this a little bit. I think I'm going to scale this down a little bit, maybe, and then move it down so it points down. Maybe I want to scale it in a little bit also. There, something like that. I'm going to move it back a little bit, I think. Now, So something like that. We want this face to be here. So here's our basic spaceship that we're working with, that we have. And then we're going to apply some smoothing to that. Often when we create these models, we'll create a rough model like this, and then we'll do some smoothing. And so far all we've been using is we're basically using face mode, a little bit of edge mode sometimes, mainly face mode, and then we've been just using these two tools, insert faces and extrude. We've also been using our move and our scale up here to do stuff. But again, relatively basic stuff. See if you can create something like this, and then let's try to do some smoothing. Okay, so we've got our model here. I'm in object mode. I've got my model selected, and now we're going to add what's called a subdivision smoother here. So again, there's my model. On this left side here, by default I'm in the select box. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do modifier properties. I'm going to add a modifier, and there's a whole list of modifiers here that we can look at. And here's where I mentioned earlier we could mirror, and so if we had our object and we only did half of it, we could mirror the other half. But again, we're not going to do that. I'm going to do the subdivision surfaces. Click on that here, and then there's some options I can have with that, but that'll just add some smoothing to this object that I have. So with this modifier in place, you can see that it smoothed it out a lot. I had a lot more edges, and again, I can actually control that over here. There's two objects that make this a little bigger, I think. I can change how smooth it is in the viewport, and also if I do an advanced rendering. So I'm going to do this viewport, and it's at 1 now, so it add 1 level of detail. And so here's again what I started with. Here's 1 level of detail, here's 2 levels of detail, and that's good. Now you don't want to add too many levels of detail. You get way too many vertices and stuff like that. But again, this is a nice simple spaceship. Then you can see where I've added these ports here and here that I can work with. I can actually go through if something's not right. Maybe I want these wings out a little bit or something like that. I can actually turn this modifier just temporarily off and go back to my original model. It just and then I can go into like edit mode, and I can select these faces or select this face here, and I can then move this face around and see, and then turn this back on and see. In fact, if I'm here, I'm in edit mode, I can see both the original model and the subdivision surface model when I'm in edit mode working on an object. So I can then select these different faces and do some different work in there and just see what that'll look like in there. So, and then when I go back to object mode, it's there. Now when I want to export this, I should apply this model at the very end. Often I want to save this before I apply it. Once you've applied, you can't undo it, but eventually you want to apply this model, and then this is just the actual model that you have that you're working with. Okay, so I want you just to create some sort of basic spaceship like this, save it, save the Blender file, and submit that. And then next week we'll look at doing some more texturing and stuff with this model.